Marsha and I had started by really using the book as a template. The book can be very abstract, but it was pretty clear in terms of whose story it was, and the book makes it fairly clear that Robert is the one who truly suffers. And so when we originally ended the musical, it ended with Robert singing "It All Fades Away," and then there was a coda afterwards where the two children had grown up and came back and discovered evidence of their mother's affair, and she sang to them a little bit about what had happened. It was a reprise of another song. And that was so deeply, intensely unsatisfying on every level, both as writers and for the audience and for the actors. And, we got there in that same reading that I wrote the new version of 1 Second in a Million Miles. We got up to it, and Marsha and I just sort of were banging our heads on the tables and, tears coming out and our hair turning gray and all of that stuff that happens in the middle of readings anyway. And we had a real blessing during that reading, which was that it was a Wednesday to Tuesday reading, which meant that we worked on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, everyone was off to go do whatever shows they were doing at the time. Kelly was in the middle of Nice Work If You Can Get It. And so we had 2 days, and during those 2 days, Marsha and I racked our brains. We did whatever it is you do to your brain to try and figure out what the ending of the show was that was going to be satisfying. And we had one long dinner at Thalia over on 50th Street, and I had a tape recorder going just in case we said anything really brilliant that we couldn't remember. And I said to Marsha, what is the ending that you want? What's the thing that makes you cry? And Marsha said, well, for me, it would be that she's sitting there by the bridge, and he comes up behind her and puts his arm around her. And as she said it, she started crying. And I thought, well, I should follow this. This seems like the sort of, you get these kind of insights very rarely, so don't be foolish enough to miss them. And so once we knew that was how it ended, was with her on the bridge alone and then being embraced by her presumably dead lover, I wanted to figure out what was the thought that led to that. And so I went back into the studio, and Marsha and I were sitting there and talking, and Marsha left and went to the elevator. And as she did, the thought occurred to me that the idea of the show was not about judging what your love was. It was simply being able to love. And as I thought that, Marsha walked back in the door. She said, I was standing at the elevator, and I thought, it's not about whether you judge the love you had or not. It's just the fact that you could love anything at all. That's the real point. And I said, I was just about, well, anyway, yes, fine. And I sent her back out the door, and I wrote the song, and I called her about 2 hours later when I had it, and I played it for her over the phone, and we knew we had found the ending. I think it's particularly resonant. I hate always talking about it like this, but this show is particularly resonant for me as an artist because I think you do frequently have to make apologies for devoting yourself to your art. Art takes a lot of your time, and it takes a lot of your soul, and it takes a lot of your love, and it takes a lot of your energy. And there are so many other people who are expecting that time and energy and love from you who do not understand the commitment that you have to make to your art, the commitment that you have to make to this thing that is inside you. And to me, Always Better is about saying you can't choose one love above another. The love that you have for your art is not something that you choose over your love for your family or vice versa. You have to love them both. To be fulfilled in this life, you have to love them both, and you have to accept that loving them both requires sacrifice on both ends. And that was what the song was. And when I talked earlier about wanting to write a grown-up musical, that was specifically the kind of grown-up idea that I wanted this show to express, not the simplistic idea that, I gave up the love of my life, or, it was better that I gave up the love of my life so I could be with my family. But it was important that both of those things happened, and it was important that they both hurt, and important that they both gave me so much joy.
When we were in previews, that song and some other things in particular were giving me some trouble as to how to finally give over to them. because this is a subject matter that didn't necessarily ring true to me in many ways, even though the woman was really, I was starting to understand her deeply. And Marsha sat down with me in the basement of the Schoenfeld, and she started to talk to me about being a woman in this business. And she started to talk to me about the difference between your passions and how we balance them, how we weigh them, and how we feel guilty for them. And if you have a passion for your family, but you have a passion for your work, should that be a crime? And the way we talked about it informed that song for me. Love is always better, more than anything else had. And it became a bookend to the way Build a Home was for me, which all spelled out this difficult ride of balancing love of family and love of work. Those two songs as bookends in my life, which I hate to disclose too much about my personal life, but that's why this musical in itself touches women, and it touched me like I can't explain. You work really hard to build yourself a life that you think you can be proud of, but you have these passions you have to respect, because that makes that home that you built a better home. And so to be able to bookend this journey with this story and this song, Love is Always Better, is the perfect way to do it.